Hello, everyone. This is Jim Ransom with another poetry program under the rubric of Morning Jim Poetry. Today's title is Oldies but Goodies. We are reading poems by Robert Frost, John Crowe, Ransom, and Billy Collins. I selected their work because they are all writers that appeal to the regular reader. It's true that John Crowe Ransom was an academic, taught for many years at Kenyon College, but he retained subject matter from what one might call the regular order of life. And Robert Frost, of course, is totally associated with New England in subject and language. And Billy Collins is a modern American in his selection of subject matter and a rather low-key language. So here they are. I'm going to start off with Robert Frost's poem, Two Tramps in Mud Time. Let me find it here. I've got an old book of Robert Frost's poems, goes back to my college years, and it was very inexpensive, but perhaps one of the reasons for that was that it was painted with, or printed with high sulfur paper, and now it's turning rusty and yellow, and eventually it'll just crumble into nothing. But in the meantime, we're going to make good use of it. Here's the poem, Two Tramps in Mud Time. Out of the mud, two strangers came and caught me splitting wood in the yard, and one of them put me off in my aim by hailing cheerily, "Hit 'em hard!" I knew pretty well why he dropped behind and let the other go on away. I knew pretty well what he had in mind. He wanted to take my job for pay. Good blocks of beech it was I split, as large around as the chopping block, and every piece I squarely hit fell splinterless as a cloven rock. The blows that a life of self-control spares to strike for the common good that day, giving a loose to my soul, I spent on the unimportant wood. The sun was warm, but the wind was chill. You know how it is with an April day when the sun is out and the wind is still. You're 1 month on in the middle of May, but if you so much as dare to speak, a cloud comes over the sunlight arch, a wind comes out of a frozen peak, and you're 2 months back to the middle of March. The water for which we may have to look in summertime with a witching wand, in every wheel nut's now a brook, in every print of a hoof a pond. Be glad of water, but don't forget that lurking frost in the earth beneath, that will steal forth after the sun is set and show on the water its crystal teeth. The time when I most loved my task, these two must make me love it more by coming with what they came to ask. You'd think I never had felt before the weight of an axe head poised aloft, the grip on earth of outspread feet, the life of muscles rocking soft and smooth and moist in vernal heat. Out of the woods, two hulking tramps from sleeping God knows where last night, but not long since in the lumber camps. They thought all chopping was theirs of right. Men of the woods and lumberjacks, they judged me by their appropriate tool, except as a fellow handled an axe, they had no way of knowing a fool. Nothing on either side was said. They knew they had but to stay their stay, and all their logic would fill my head, and that I had no right to play with what was another man's work for gain. My right might be love, but theirs was need. And where the two exist in twain, theirs was the better right. Agreed. But yield who will to their separation. My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation, as my two eyes make one in sight, only where love and need are one, and the work is play for mortal stakes, is the deed ever really done for heaven and for future's sake. If a poem could ever limn the character of a New Englander, it would be this one by Robert Frost, I think. He's explaining why he won't pay the out-of-work tramps, as he calls them, who are really out-of-work lumberjacks, to split his logs. Oh, yes, they need work and to be paid, but his freedom to do what makes him happy is threatened. So it is no to the tramps. In today's world, Frost would probably be excoriated for being so hard-hearted. He ain't woke, folks. Well, that's a philosophical question that we're not going to solve here today, but at least you have some idea of how Robert Frost thought about it. And he was the quintessential New Englander of his time. Where did all those New Englanders go? I don't think they're in New England anymore. But let's move on and read another poem. This one is from the book Selected Poems of John Crowe, Ransom. And it's the very first one in that book. It's called Miriam Tazewell. And I'll explain why I decided to read it after I do. When Miriam Tazewell heard the tempest bursting and his wrathy whips across the sky drawn crackling, she stuffed her ears for fright like a young thing, and with heart full of the flowers, took to weeping. But the earth shook dry his old back in good season. He had weathered storms that drenched him deep as this one. And the sun, Miriam, ascended to his dominion. The storm was withered against his empyrean. After the storm she went forth with skirts kilted, to see in the hot sun her lawn deflowered, her tulips, iris, peonies strung and pelted, pots of geraniums spilled and the stalks naked. The spring transpired in that year with no flowers, but the regular stars went busily on their courses. Suppers and cards were calendared, and some bridals, and the birds demurely sang in the bitten poplars. So, to Miriam Tazewell, the whole world was villain. The principle of the beast was low and masculine. And not to unstop her own storm and be maudlin. For weeks, she went untidy. She went sullen. Well, she was not happy, let's put it that way. She's a dedicated gardener, although it is possible that Miriam had a real gardener plant her flowers, but her suffering seems out of proportion to the damaged garden. But maybe not. Who are we to say? Okay, now here's one by Billy Collins. And I have to say that I read this previously on one of my programs way back in 2021. I'm hoping that none of you will remember it, or maybe weren't here at that time. It's called The History Teacher, and you may recognize it as being very timely. Trying to protect his students' innocence, he told them the Ice Age was really just the Chilly Age, a period of 1,000,000 years when everyone had to wear sweaters. And the Stone Age became the Gravel Age, named after the long driveways of that time. The Spanish Inquisition was nothing more than an outbreak of questions such as, how far is it from here to Madrid? And what do you call the matador's hat? The War of the Roses took place in a garden, and the Enola Gay dropped one tiny atom on Japan. The children would leave his classroom for the playground to torment the weak and the smart, mussing up their hair and breaking their glasses, while he gathered up his notes and walked home past flower beds and white picket fences, wondering if they would believe that soldiers in the Boer War told long, rambling stories designed to make the enemy nod off. Well, right now we have a problem in the schools of teachers in some states saying that they can teach children without the permission of the parents, and they can teach them pretty tawdry things, all about sex in all its many nastier manifestations, and these being children just in grade school. We're not talking about seniors in high school here. So anyway, I think that today's teachers are once again being accused of indoctrinating students instead of educating them to think how to think. Is it true? Not for me to say. That's it for today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed these works by some of America's most lauded poets. Whether you think so or not, that's what the historical record says. And I hope you'll come in and join me next week. We'll see if we have something that we can enjoy then, by some different poets. Bye now, and have a nice week. Bye.